Things are getting hot in the streets of Minneapolis, worse by far, exponentially worse than when Brittany Page and I were there last week through the weekend. I would encourage you, I'm going to go through this. This is some insane shit here. But I'm going to go through this tweet from this Zooples account on Blue Sky. And this is alarming stuff. They've got like challenge coins that have been found in an abandoned ICE vehicle. These cowards ran away. But I want to encourage you before I get into this topic. Go on Threads or Blue Sky and avoid the Nazi Twitter, but find the resources out there. There are people documenting the actions of ICE out there all day long, posting video after video. There are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of videos of ICE acting unhinged, violent, like the masked secret police filled with Proud Boys force that they are. And we all need to be made aware of it. The media is not doing a good enough job of bringing these clips to the forefront, to the public mind. Too many people rely upon just the MS Nows and the CNNs and the Fox Newses of the world, and they're not bringing it to you. So make sure you're seeking out alternative sources of information on what's taking place. Let's get to this tweet or this post here on Blue Sky from this account, Zooples, don't know them. But this is going viral right now, that they shot somebody. This is the second post, that I shot someone, ran off and left paperwork in the vehicle, which was then raided. Protesters, apparently not there, don't know, but went through the vehicle and found these papers where they're stained. There's their tactics, there's maps, there's names and phone numbers of judges that they need to be calling. And then these weird challenge coins with skeletons and very Nazi adjacent symbology. Let's start with the first post here. ICE car was raided in Minneapolis. Documents were found that reveal their entire plan. Those involved, judges, maps, their immigrant target plan of attack. Yes, they call them targets. Names, numbers, emails, hotels, hotel phone numbers, and more. And if you look at these, I mean, here, this looks to me to be we'll just put them up on screen. This looks to me to be a hotel registration. More information here. All of these, I'm just going to put them up on screen for a little bit of time so you can have this resource. You can pause, you can look, you can screen print what we're looking at here. Here's a map. More zoomed in on the map with the instructions. Make sure you have a PIV car access. This aerial shot here in this fourth image on this first post is an aerial of the Whipple Federal Building complex. And apparently this circled area is where they are detaining the migrants, the community members that are being kidnapped off the street. If you look here at the bottom of the post, just above the word PIV, that's where we were standing face to face with ICE agents as they were firing their pepper pellets to plume the irritant, the pepper spray into the crowd, where they were hitting women in wheelchairs. All to protect that little building, as though this frothing mob of insurrectionists is going to storm the gates and get inside the building. No one had that intent. They were there to register their a disagreement with the presence of ICE. We were there to malign them. We were there to scream at them. We were there to register our displeasure as Americans, using our First Amendment rights. Second post here, it gets worse and worse. This third post is actually the most troubling to me. I shot someone, ran off, and left paperwork in their vehicle, which was then raided. Super secret details of these images that include all the information for the ICE attacks in Minnesota. Definitely don't call the phone numbers or bother the Nazis or share their information or hack them. Don't do that. Here, again, we will put these up for, 5 seconds each, or as long as I'm running my mouth here. You can look at the images that are in this post. Legal contact information, the USAO, got the name, Tom Calhoun Lopez. I think that's the individual who just quit his job. One of the 6 Minnesota federal prosecutors that left because Donald Trump, instead of wanting to investigate the killer of Renee Good, Jonathan Ross, they're investigating Rene Good's wife and family. Yeah. Nazi shit in America in 2026. Put the rest of these images up. And then finally, the third post here, ICE special accomplishment tokens for the most successful and sadistic Nazi terrorists. And then these are weird challenge coins. That this is very like bounty hunter-esque, like they want their trophy for the job that they've done, a job well done of kidnapping black and brown people, of harassing black and brown people, of murdering citizens. They shot another person last night. They tossed a canister, a flashbang grenade into a car with a family with a 6-month-old, among other children. The 6-month-old had to be brought to the hospital, could not breathe. This is going after the worst of the worst, they say, as they collect their skull and crossbone with a crown on it coins and abandoning their federal vehicle. And let me tell you, having been there, these protesters are not violent. As I pointed out yesterday from the leaked memo to Ken Klippenstein in his Substack and showed those images, they know what the constraints that have been placed upon them by the law, by the Constitution. They know that being ridiculed isn't a violation of 18 U.S. Code, whatever it was, Section 111. They know that. I don't want to give a bad information. This is from yesterday. 18 U.S. Code, Section 111. Use this information as you see fit. We needn't be breaking the laws and making ourselves a target of these Nazis. We don't want to give them any excuses to come knocking at our door to harass or possibly murder us in cold blood as they did Rene Good. But there needs to be an uprising. There needs to be a resistance. There needs to be, as I will demonstrate later, all of us joining one with another to raise our voices, to communicate to the rest of the world and the rest of the country and the rest of our countrymen and women that we don't approve of this. And it's okay for you not to approve as well. Anyway, what do you think? This is bananas stuff here, that we have a roaming armed band of masked bandits, of masked urban assault assassination squads roaming through, going door to door, as J.D. Vance promised, going door to door in Minneapolis, attempting to kidnap people out of homes. No warrants, no due process, just harassment and violence at the hands of Donald Trump's masked secret police force filled to the gills with Proud Boys members. And you'll learn chief of them, Enrique Tarrio, apparently is now a Proud Boy. We'll get to that next. It landed him a job with Donald Trump's terror squads. No more fitting an employee for a Nazi goon squad than Enrique Tarrio. At the end of this month, we're going to have another vote about keeping the government open. If you're asking me, nobody's asking me, but I'm just going to volunteer this information about what my opinion is. Democrats need to shut this fucking thing down. Democrats need to ensure that we do not fund, we do not stand up, we do not allow to continue this fascist regime of violence. Donald Trump's terror regime. Threatening a day of reckoning and retribution for the city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. It should come as no surprise to anyone. If you really look at this, Donald Trump is going full court press, full fascist against who? The person who was on the ticket that he just ran against for president of the United States, Tim Walz, his state. Do you think it's a coincidence that the man who was almost vice president of the United States right now, if not for the 1.49% that Donald Trump won by, that our broken electoral college system, it would have been Tim Walz. And it could be again Tim Walz running for president. I'd like to see that. So Democrats need to stop thinking that Republicans are partners in governance. We're really hoping Republicans will do the right thing, says Chuck Schumer. Keep hoping on that. Keep praying on that, Chuck. It ain't happening. And the fact that you still feel that is a viable option, something to wait for, tells everybody you need to step down from your role as minority leader and let someone who will lead. Donald Trump posted this on True Social just this morning. If the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists, fantastic, from attacking the patriots of ICE, who are only trying to do their job, I will institute. You'll institute it? I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to this travesty that is taking place in that once great state. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Dumb fuck, credibly accused rapist of children, President DJT. I hope all of that is sinking in. That an insurrectionist, a man who incited a violent mob to action to attempt to overthrow the United States government in an act of insurrection, is now threatening to wield the power of instituting, not enacting, the Insurrection Act. He wants violence. Donald Trump wants a civil war, maybe more than anybody else other than maybe Stephen Miller. This is what he wants. This is why they're putting wholly unqualified dipshits, functionally illiterate morons in ICE. That's why there was an article in Slate yesterday. I'm sure you could find it. Somebody attempted to get hired by ICE, was hired by ICE after a 6-minute interview where they didn't even Google him. They didn't even find out that this person was ardently anti-Trump in their social media. They didn't do a background check. They didn't do a drug check. Just, you're hired. You want to disappear brown people? You're hired. You want to harass black people at gas stations, walking up to them, asking for their papers like the fucking Gestapo? You're hired. And Proud Boys are among them. Enrique Tarrio, a man who was convicted of seditious conspiracy against the United States in his attempt to overthrow the United States government on January 6th, apparently is now an ICE agent. This is from Telemundo. This is translated from Spanish to English, so keep that in mind. I don't speak Spanish. I am a product of American education, where we don't value speaking a second language like the rest of the world does. So I apologize in advance. Enrique Tarrio, former leader of the Proud Boys, says he has become an ICE agent. Tarrio, who received a pardon from Trump for his role in the 2021 Capitol Hill attack, was arrested a month after his release on an assault charge in Washington, D.C. A month after his release, after his clemency or pardon, whichever it was that Donald Trump gave him, he was arrested again for assaulting somebody in the streets of Washington, D.C. And now, I guess all of that criminality, all of that rogue white supremacy, where'd it get him? It landed him a job with Donald Trump's terror squads. No more fitting an employee for a Nazi goon squad than Enrique Tarrio. Former Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio suggested in a message on the social network X that he had become an agent for Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, ICE. A list I'm finally glad to be a part of, Tarrio wrote in response to a user who claimed to be among the other Floridians who had signed up with ICE during the agency's controversial recruitment drive in the state. ICE has launched a campaign in Florida, of course, to add agents to its ranks, which has faced protests. On Tuesday, the city of Tampa hosted a recruitment event for aspiring federal agents. The event drew activists and residents who opposed Trump's policies and who attempted to persuade attendees, many of whom were of a Hispanic origin. So let me say this. I guess I got a message to those of you who are out there trying to get involved with ICE, who are black and brown folks, who are in marginalized groups, who have been and will be oppressed by this same government you're trying to do a dance for, to bend the knee to. When they're done with the Somali immigrants and the Haitian immigrants and the Salvadoran and the Venezuelans, you'll be next. You think you being a part of this movement will extricate you from troubles? Will remove you from threat of violence and white supremacy? It will not. They are deporting veterans of the United States military who they don't see as sufficiently qualified to be in the country, people who have fought for this nation. You think you're going to be saved because you donned the mask and joined the secret police force? Think again. Tarrio was found guilty of orchestrating a plot to obstruct the peaceful transfer of power on January 6, 2021, after President Trump lost the 2020 election to Joe Biden. After being sentenced to 22 years in prison, Tarrio was released on January 21st, 2025, benefiting from the pardons that Trump granted to more than 1,500 defendants for the attack on the Capitol on January 6, 2021. Look, a lot of people said, I'm losing my voice. A lot of people out there said, you're being hyperbolic when you say that Donald Trump wants his own personal army filled with Proud Boys. I said that on January 21st, 2025. For a year, I've been saying this very thing, and people labeled me an alarmist. And now that it's happening, it's fucking crickets from the peanut gallery. Where are those people? Democrats, do not fund this government. Do not fund the domestic murder and terrorizing of American communities. Trump pardoned, commuted sentences, or ordered the dismissal of cases against more than 1,500 people accused of federal crimes related to the riots at the Capitol. Tarrio's 22-year prison sentence took place on September 6, 2023, after he was found guilty of seditious conspiracy charges for his role in storming the Capitol. And now he's an ICE agent. Now ICE sees fit to hold him and protect him in their ranks. A man literally convicted by a jury of his peers of sedition against the United States. But he's loyal to Trump, and that's the only qualification you need to have. You don't need to be able to read or write. You don't need to be able to have a clean criminal record or a clean drug test. None of that matters. You don't even need to be proficient in the law of search and seizure, of abiding by the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment, the First Amendment, the 14th Amendment. None of it matters as long as you're loyal to the dear leader. And I guess Enrique Tarrio has that in spades. What do you think? I invite you to this very perilous time to talk about this topic. We can do it in the comments below the video, wherever you're watching it. You can also call the voicemail line 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me, daily@dollemore.com. Get involved. If you have it within you, if you are physically able, if you are financially able, get involved. Get involved. Everybody get involved. And call your representative. Call your senator. 202-224-3121. Remember that number. Program that number into your phone. 202-224-3121. That is the Capitol switchboard. Just tell them where you're from. They'll connect you to your representative or your senator and tell them, shut down this terror government. Do not allow Donald Trump to continue the assassination squad business.
We will not have to live like this forever. Accountability is coming at the voting booth and in court, and we will bring an end to this moment of chaos, confusion, and trauma.
Call your congressman and senator. Call your member of Congress and tell them to shut down this government. I'm starting every single video this way today. Every element of the show will be structured around that. We cannot allow Donald Trump's mass secret police to murder citizens, to kidnap community members any longer. It is a domestic terror squad that is loyal only to Donald Trump. 202-224-3121. That is the Capitol switchboard number. Use it every day. Program it into your phone. Call your congressperson, your senator, and let them know you will not stand for this. We will primary Democrats if they don't do the right thing here. Do not be a Nazi collaborator. Do not be a collaborator of Donald Trump. Do not advance the agenda of Donald Trump. Shut it down. Shut it the fuck down. Yesterday, Tim Walz gave a statement, prepared remarks addressing the chaos, the terror, the harassment, the murder, the kidnapping in the streets in his state. I'm going to play two clips from it. One is kind of a mashup of what MS Now thought to be the most impactful moments of the speech. One they left out, though, and I'm going to include that at the end. It needs to be, all of this needs to be heard. Tim Walz is a brave leader in the face of the absolute threat that Donald Trump is laying down, not just for himself, but for the people he serves. We need more leaders like Tim Walz. We need people who aren't just going to wring their hands and act concerned, but actually take action. That right now is what we need in the Democratic Party, in our leadership. This is what we should look to, is people who are doing something, not saying something. And Tim Walz is doing something. First is this little mashup, zippy little mashup clip for about 1 minute or so from MS Now. And then we'll get to the part that I think is the most important.
What's happening in Minnesota right now defies belief. News reports simply don't do justice to the level of chaos and disruption and trauma the federal government is raining down upon our communities. They're pulling over people indiscriminately, including U.S. citizens, and demanding to see their papers. And at grocery stores, at bus stops, even at our schools, they're breaking windows, dragging pregnant women down the street, just plain grabbing Minnesotans and shoving them into unmarked vans, kidnapping innocent people with no warning and no due process. Let's be very, very clear. This long ago stopped being a matter of immigration enforcement. Instead, it's a campaign of organized brutality against the people of Minnesota by our own federal government. This week, he went online to promise that, quote, the day of retribution and reckoning is coming. That's a direct threat against the people of this state, who dared to vote against him 3 times and who continue to stand up for freedom with courage and empathy and profound grace.
Every single word of that is true. Nothing about that was an exaggeration. In fact, he didn't go far enough. He didn't call them domestic terrorists, which is what they are. What's happening in Minnesota right now defies belief. If you're watching the clips that I'm seeing, if you're on Threads, is where primarily their algorithm really is geared toward giving you the thing that you're searching for. And it is just an onslaught of assault after assault after assault, kidnapping after kidnapping after kidnapping, brutality after brutality. Walking up to dudes who are getting gas in their car. Where were you born? Prove to me that you're sufficiently American. Kidnapping children, choking children, shooting point blank, non-lethal rounds into the faces of protesters, rendering them blind in one eye. Stealing the kidnapped kid's phone that they just choked out. They took the phone, went to one of those machines where you can redeem it for cash, and then sold his phone that was his, that they now were paid to steal. All under the auspices of absolute immunity, says Donald Trump and Stephen Miller, the shadow president. Demanding to see papers. That is what is happening. All of the, don't call us Nazis. Well, if you stopped acting like fucking Nazis, maybe we wouldn't call you Nazis. If you stopped covering your faces like you were the mass secret police force, like you're Donald Trump's Gestapo, maybe we would. Quit your jobs. Join us on the right side of history, brothers and sisters. Dragging pregnant women, breaking windows, just grabbing plain Minnesotans and shoving them into unmarked cars. No due process, no justification, no warning. This, like he said, is not an immigration enforcement. This is not about the worst of the worst. This is not about removing drug traffickers and pedophiles off the street of the United States. If that were the case, Donald Trump would not be pardoning these people, one after the other, if they benefit him, if they advance his agenda, if they sufficiently pay him, he pardons them. This is an attempt to make a white ethno-state in the United States. And listen, if you're one of those who denied that this would be a secret police force of Donald Trump, ICE, if we funded it, that it would be filled with Proud Boys, if you denied it, and now you're like, oh, you were right. Trust me when I say Donald Trump is attempting to, through Stephen Miller and the apparatus of the Homeland Security Department, attempting to create a white ethno-state in America. Just like Hitler tried to do in the previous century in Germany and Europe writ large. Now, here's the element of the clip that I want to play. I think this is the most important thing. MSNBC or MS Now, they chose to leave it out for whatever reason, pithiness, whatever. This is important. This is direction. We are taking care of it on our end through lawsuits, through opposition to what's taking place. But if you're out there on the ground, this is what you need to do. And also followed by a message of hope.
Tonight, I want to share another way you can help. Witness. Help us establish a record of exactly what's happening in our communities. You have an absolute right to peacefully film ICE agents as they conduct these activities. So carry your phone with you at all times. And if you see these ICE agents in your neighborhood, take out that phone and hit record. Help us create a database of the atrocities against Minnesotans, not just to establish a record for posterity, but to bank evidence for future prosecution. The third thing I want to say to you tonight is we will not have to live like this forever. Accountability is coming at the voting booth and in court. We will reclaim our communities from Donald Trump. We will reestablish a sense of safety for our neighbors. And we will bring an end to this moment of chaos, confusion, and trauma. We will find a way to move forward, and we'll do it together. And we'll not be alone. Every day we are working with business leaders, faith leaders, legal experts, and elected officials from across this country. They've all seen what Donald Trump is trying to do to our state, and they know their states could be next.
Film them. Film them. Why? Future prosecutions. They will be held accountable. When all of this is over, I was screaming this at ICE agents last weekend. When all of this is over, there will be consequence for you. Donald Trump can't save you from what is to come. Whether that be tribunals, whether that be just standard run-of-the-mill court cases where you are criminally charged, there will be consequence. One way or the other, justice will be served. Donald Trump can't pardon state crimes. It is a prohibition. It is not a power offered him by the Constitution of the United States. He's already tried with Tina Peters in Colorado. And they told him to fucking pound sand, punk ass. That's not how it works, stupid asshole. I don't think those are the words they use, but you know, I'm paraphrasing. So look, if you're in Minnesota, hang tough. This too shall end. This won't be the way it is forever. I know it's really grasping at straws for a hopeful message, but it's true. And when you're in the midst of terror like the citizens of Minneapolis and Minnesota are right now, maybe it's all the hope they need. Again, call your member of Congress, 202-224-3121, and tell them to shut this terror regime down. Not a dollar to fund the federal government until Donald Trump stops his attempt to create a white ethno-state. Comment below. You can also call the voicemail line. Talk to me, 714-576-4054. And you can email me, daily@dollemore.com. I love and appreciate you very much. I'll see you next time.
Why is it that ICE is so unpopular at this point? Well, take a look at our new CNN SSRS poll, and I think this sort of gives the game away. ICE enforcement is making U.S. cities less safe. Look at this, 51%.
Once again, you're going to hear the number a lot today, 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. That is the Capitol switchboard. Call your member of Congress and tell them not to fund this terror regime. Not another dollar while they're kidnapping Americans and community members in the streets in an attempt to create a white ethno-state. Do not be a Nazi collaborator. If you ask yourself, if you're one of those people who watches CNN or Fox News or Newsmax or News Nation, you're probably not seeing the full brunt of the terror that's being visited upon the residents of Minneapolis right now. And that's a shame. And the problem with that, I'm not going to give the reason. We all know what the reason is for mainstream media to bend the knee to Donald Trump and be cozy, to have access to him when his stupid gaggles on Air Force One. They love it. They love their access. The problem with that lack of coverage is the fact that people get kind of eased into an idea that they listen to Greg Bovino say 90% of Americans support the mission of the Border Patrol and ICE, when actually it's like 56% disapprove. 40% of people before the shooting of Renee Good said 40% were absolutely, strongly in disagreement with the operation. Now it's even worse. Donald Trump is hemorrhaging support from groups that were on track to be the next MAGA movement. And they're watching what's taking place. And part of this, actually, let me say that. Let me save that part after this clip. This is Harry Enton from CNN talking about the youth vote that was so important to Donald Trump. He still brags all the time. We got the youth vote. We got the old vote. We got the black vote. We got the just lies. But he did do better with youth this election than he did in past elections. And that's a problem. But they are waking up. And we'll talk about some of those reasons on the other side. Watch these outrageously terrible numbers for Donald Trump.
New this morning. What about the kids? Perhaps no group swung more in the 2024 election than younger voters. They were decisive in Donald Trump's win. We've got new data this morning on what they think now. With us now, CNN Chief Data Analyst Harry Enton. There have been some pretty big shifts here.
Yeah, these guys are swingers. That's what we're talking about here. Take a look here. Generation Z. John liked that. Gen Z, party ID margin, Dems versus the GOP. In 2024, look at this. It was just a 6-point margin between the Democrats and Republicans. Democrats just led by 6 points. Very small. Remember, Donald Trump did very well for a Republican candidate amongst the youngest part of the electorate. But take a look here. 2025. Hello. A huge widening of the lead for Democrats among Generation Z, tripling their lead on party identification from 6 all the way up to 20. That was, in fact, the largest shift, considerably more so than any other group. Yes, there was a shift in the overall electorate, but this more than double the shift that we saw among the electorate at large towards the Democratic Party.
Okay, and we said it was decisive for Donald Trump. How have opinions shifted toward Donald Trump among this group?
Okay, so this, in some ways, you might say this, this doesn't necessarily apply to Donald Trump. It absolutely does apply to Donald Trump. I mean, he has just fallen off a cliff when it comes to Generation Z. Look at this. Donald Trump's net approval rating in February of 2025. John said it right. Wow.
This was actually a month into the administration.
This was a month into the administration. He was at plus 10 points on the net approval rating. He was on the right side of the ledger. Look at this. Falling off that cliff. That is a drop of 42 points to negative 32 points on the net approval rating amongst Generation Z. My goodness gracious. This, as I said, is a very swingy group, and it has swung very much away from Donald John Trump.
A drop of 42 points from plus 10 to negative 32. I agree. My goodness gracious, Harry Enton. I agree. And one of the reasons I think this might be taking place is this. Younger voters, I talked about this a lot when Trump first got elected, that these children who are 12 years old or so and are just kind of coming into their own to understand our political system and see and maybe look up to the president, they've never really known what a president was like before. The 12-year-olds in 2016 don't really have any real fundamental memories of Obama and whether he was an appropriate president or how he acted. So their foray into American politics was Donald Trump and thinking that Donald Trump acted like a normal president. And so it's kind of the same thing with this. They heard Donald Trump. They heard his promises. They don't really remember because they were too young, the first administration, to have witnessed the chaos. And so they voted for him based on the promises and the things that he said. And now, when those things are so out of line with one another, they're just misaligned, the promises versus what is actually taking place, they're like, we're out of here. We don't want any part of this. This is not what I voted for. This is not what I was promised. And they're leaving in droves. A 42-point swing is insane. Insane. It's the kind of thing that if Donald Trump had shot somebody on Fifth Avenue and people witnessed it, they'd be like, oh yeah, I thought it was just the thing he was saying, but he did it. And then they flee. They leave the comfort of the support within the MAGA movement. It's not just young people, though, because I think this swing is because of ICE, is because of Donald Trump's policies relative to this mass secret police force filled to the brim with Proud Boys. And Americans largely, don't listen to Greg Bovino, these are the actual polls, largely disagree with what is taking place in America at the hands of Donald Trump's personal army of Proud Boy goons.
By saying that Americans at this point do not like ICE, and that is very different from what we saw during Trump's first term. Just take a look here. ICE's net approval rating. In Trump's first term, ICE, kind of lukewarm. You had them right there at a net approval rating of 0 points. Look at where we are today. We're talking about a negative 17-point approval rating. That is a 17-point drop from where we were during Trump's first term. Among independents, the number is even lower in terms of the net approval rating. And why is it that ICE is so unpopular at this point? Well, take a look at our new CNN SSRS poll, and I think this sort of gives the game away. ICE enforcement is making U.S. cities less safe. Look at this. 51% of Americans say that ICE enforcement in cities is making those cities less safe. That includes 59% of Americans who live in cities, compared to just 31% who say that, in fact, ICE enforcement is making U.S. cities more safe. So what we see here is Trump and ICE losing this argument over ICE going into cities, making them more safe. Now, of course, the ICE discussion is part of a larger argument, right? A larger discussion about immigration enforcement in this country. And, when it comes to Donald Trump, remember, he's run on immigration in all three of his presidential bids. It's a big reason why he got elected the first time around, won that Republican nomination. It was a strength for him earlier on during his second term. Look at this. His net approval rating, according to our CNN polling, was at plus 3 points on the positive side of the ledger. But look at where it is now. It is way underwater at 16 points on the negative side of the equation. That is a 19-point drop in less than a year's time. Now, what is one of the big reasons why Donald Trump's net approval rating on immigration has gone down, Caitlin? Well, it simply comes down to this. Trump's gone too far in deporting undocumented immigrants. Look at this. Back in February of 2025, it was 45%. Now it's a majority of Americans, 52%, and that includes Caitlin Collins, 56% of independents. The bottom line is this. ICE and Trump are losing the argument when it comes to the American people. They don't like this immigration enforcement, and it is costing Trump political points at this time, Caitlin.
And those stats right there are the very reason that I say share this video. Share videos that are talking about the terror being visited upon the citizens of Minneapolis, the citizens of Los Angeles, the citizens of Chicago, the citizens of New Orleans, the citizens right here in the city of Washington, D.C. Share these videos. Go on Facebook. I'm sharing my videos natively there now. This isn't just a plea to share my videos. This information needs to get out there so these numbers hit the bottom. They will bottom out at some point, because eventually everybody's going to be woken up to the fact that of what's happening on the ground. It is clear. It is self-evident. It is fucking obvious that Donald Trump is attempting to create a white nation, a white, whatever version of Christianity they think they have and hold. It's being done right before our eyes. And too many people are asleep to the fact. That's why sharing this kind of content is important. Anyway, what do you think? Let's talk about this in the comments. Have you shifted your opinion? Love to hear from you.
So the breaking news tonight, I fired them all. They want to be part of the resistance. Yeah, bring it on. They're not going to be working for Donald Trump.
Once again, you're going to get tired of hearing the number 202-224-3121. Numbers on the screen. I'll say it again slower. 202-224-3121. That is the Capitol switchboard. Call your congressperson or senator, and let them know that at the end of the month, when it comes time to fund the federal government, you will not stand for funding Donald Trump's terror regime. You will not stand for the government being funded while it is kidnapping Americans off the street with no due process, of disappearing community members from our towns, from our cities. You will not stand for that. Especially if you are represented by a Democrat, you need to call. Again, 202-224-3121. One of the problems we face in this country is that, yes, we have fascism in the nation. We are led by an absolutely malevolent force of megalomaniacal assholes, to be sure. But one of the aspects of it that makes it so much more depressing is the fact that they are stupid. They are the worst criminals, the most public criminals. They're just open in their corruption, but also just feckless in messaging and everything else. They're just dopey wannabes. They would love to be respected, but they just can't muster the skill to respect. Pam Bondi yesterday did a little hit from the White House lawn, not from the Department of Justice where her office is. She does it from Donald Trump's domain, because after all, she does not run an independent agency in this government. She works for Donald Trump. She is Donald Trump's personal toady, his personal lawyer. And she's not even really the head of the Department of Justice. She's not really the Attorney General. That role falls to Stephen Miller, who also controls the State Department, who also tells Kristi Noem what to do, the shadow president, Stephen Miller. But I talked yesterday about a story out of Minnesota where 6 federal prosecutors have resigned in protest of Donald Trump not wanting to investigate Jonathan Ross and see whether a crime was committed, but actually to investigate and harass using the power and the weight of the federal government against the family of Renee Good, the victim of the shooting. Donald Trump wants to make their lives even more miserable than they already are, having lost a loved one. There's no legal predicate for this. There's no legal justification for this. There's no legal basis for this. It's just to harass. And they quit. But Pam Bondi, not so fast. Pam Bondi says, you can't quit. You can't quit. You're fired. I fired you. That was her message from the lawn of the White House.
Move on to Minnesota. You have multiple employees now that have resigned. They didn't like the fact that there's an investigation into some of these groups. We call it astroturfing. There are different groups, even crowds that you can purchase, believe it or not, which is insane. And they didn't want to be a part of this. And you need to get to the bottom of is who might be financing the instances that would be putting ICE agents' lives in jeopardy. Isn't that legitimate? That seems legitimate to me, especially in light of, an 8,000% increase in the threat level and a 1,300% increase in, attacks against these guys.
Yeah. Sean, we support Secretary Noem. We support our men and women of Homeland Security and ICE, who are out there taking predators off the street every day around the country, and they're doing it in Minnesota. What happened in Minnesota? We had 6 prosecutors who suddenly decided they didn't want to support the men and women in ICE. One of them was busy doing a photo shoot with the New York Times while ICE was out there risking their lives. So they came, they said, we want to resign, but we want to use our annual leave up until April, meaning they wanted the taxpayers to pay for them to go on vacation because they decided they didn't want to support law enforcement. So the breaking news tonight, I fired them all. They're fired from the office. And our U.S. attorney there, Rosen, he's great. He was just confirmed 3 months ago. So he has his hands full. And that's what we're facing around the country, the deep state, in many of these offices. And we learned these people had been out there interviewing at liberal law firms prior to this. But I'll tell you what, from a personnel level, they'd be an HR nightmare. So people better look into them. One of them actually in 2022 defended BLM when they burned down a pawn shop and someone was murdered. Yeah, they want to be part of the resistance. Yeah, bring it on. They're not going to be working for Donald Trump and the Department of Justice any longer.
One, how is not wanting to prosecute the victim's family, wanting to investigate criminally or just to find something that they could prosecute, how is that not wanting to support the men and women in ICE? One, good on them for not wanting to support the masked secret police force of Donald Trump, the private army of Donald Trump, endeavoring to create a white ethno-state in the United States. Set that aside. How is one connected to the other? How is thinking that maybe we should have an investigation into the shooting just to get to the basis of facts and see what happened? How is that not supporting? Isn't that supporting? So if you do indeed have a bad apple, they always say, if indeed you do have a bad apple, you could root that apple out before he spoils the whole barrel of apples. Aren't these the metaphors we've heard for so long from Republicans? But it's no, I fired them all. You can't quit. I fired you. I have to have the last word. I'm Pam Bondi. It is, look, I'm not shocked by it. I'm not surprised by it, but it is something to behold, to witness Sean Hannity all in for the fascist. A guy who for years has been the don't tread on me guy. He's been the radical liberty candidate guy at Fox News. And now that tyranny is here and jackbooted armed agents of the state are going door to door asking for people's papers like it's Nazi fucking Germany, he's up on the highest mountaintop, signal boosting the fascism. No problems for Sean, because he's under the wing of the fascist. He is a high priest in the cult of Donald Trump. There's a movement afoot in the media to bend the knee to Donald Trump, to give him what he wants, to not push back, to frame stories that are beneficial to him and his agenda. I, for one, am not here for that. I hope you are not here for that. And this is why you need to call your member of Congress and tell them to shut this government down. Do not fund a terror squad outfit. The private army of Donald Trump that we're now learning, as I talked about earlier, is filled to the brim with Proud Boys, up to and including the convicted felon, seditious conspiracy type like Enrique Tarrio. If that's not disqualifying to work for ICE, what is? It seems actually more a qualification in Donald Trump's secret police force, not something they have to waive to get him in. You know, when you join the military, if you have flat feet or you have this or you have that, you get a waiver to actually get in because you fall outside of the bounds of what is standard qualification. That doesn't seem to be the case at all with ICE. They're hiring people who can't read or write, can't pass open book tests. All the answers are in their documentation. Just go through it and find the answers and then write them down on the paper. That's all you got to do. It's an open book test. And they're too fucking stupid to do that. They can't read or write well enough to do that. They are criminally inclined, so much so that many of them have to leave training to go attend to court cases that have not been settled, that involve gun charges, domestic violence charges, shoplifting charges. The only qualification that matters to Donald Trump is that you are a warm body and that you will follow the orders of the dear leader, that you will be loyal to the dear leader despite the fact that you raise your right hand and swear an oath and affirm your allegiance to the Constitution of the United States, the document that undergirds all of our system of laws. But Donald Trump demands loyalty. Stephen Miller demands loyalty. As the simps and the cowards and the apologists for the MAGA movement try to tell you that what you witnessed on Inauguration Day when Elon Musk threw up the Nazi salute, that's not a Nazi salute. I was on Piers Morgan's show and that dipshit did the same thing when I called it a Nazi salute. Oh, come on, that wasn't a Nazi salute. That wasn't. Is that what you think now? Is that what you think now, Piers? Is that what you think now, MAGA apologists? That this isn't a movement of Nazism, of white supremacy, of straight up racist trolls, of the KKK reborn, attempting to create a white nation, a white Christian nation. They're eating the pets. They're eating the cats and the dogs. They're stealing all the welfare. All of the black people are doing all of the things. It's like Ronald Reagan amped up by 1,000 times. You can't quit, you're fired. Morons. What do you think? I welcome your feedback.
It can cost around $3 a meal for a piece of chicken, a piece of broccoli, corn tortilla, and one other thing.
Starting every video, or trying to remember, call your member of Congress, 202-224-3121. Tell them not to fund this terror administration. Do not fund this well-funded operation of ICE to deliver terror and misery and brutality to the streets of the United States. No Nazi collaboration. That is the message. 202-224-3121. While, by the way, we exist in the worst possible timeline, Donald Trump has his ag secretary out there, Brooke Rollins, saying that, yeah, inflation's bad, but we got a plan. We ran a simulation, and we know now how to have you stretch your money. You can't afford groceries because inflation is on the rise in Donald Trump's America. That's okay. We have a plan that you can eat a piece of chicken, a piece of broccoli, what was the other thing? A corn tortilla, and one other thing for $3. While Donald Trump builds a ballroom that has dwarfed the White House itself, there are plans to demolish the West Wing of the White House and add something else there. He's literally reforming the executive mansion for himself, making it as ostentatious and gross as Mar-a-Lago is. He comes from his gold-crusted toilets in Trump Tower in New York City and then wants to reshape the White House to be like that. He has given his sons millions and tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. They are all just fabulously wealthy, but you can have a piece of chicken and a piece of broccoli. I mean, people get fucking beheaded for this kind of talk in previous centuries. Let them eat cake, which I think is a misnomer and misattributed, not really fully accurate of what Marie Antoinette said, but she did lose her fucking head, I'll tell you that. She was killed. She was murdered by the citizenry. That's the consequence of these kinds of this kind of talk, these kinds of attitudes so often in history. I'm going to play two clips for you. One is kind of a setup, like 40 seconds long. She's on News Nation. No prize, News Nation. Garbage. It's just CNN light. Worse than CNN, most certainly. And the host is pressing her a little bit on inflation and the cost of groceries and how Americans, they're not framing it like Fox News, like, look, things are good, but people just don't feel like they're good. He's not going that far, but it's almost. Watch this setup, and then we'll get to you getting a piece of chicken and broccoli.
I ask is I'm thinking back to the CPI report that just came out, and although inflation overall, as you know, kind of held steady, 2.7% at an annual rate on the consumer level, we did see groceries, especially month to month, jumping up. So it still costs people a lot to go to the grocery store. When is that going to change?
Well, here's what I would say. The cost of groceries are actually coming down. There was a little blip at the end of the year because it's the holiday and a lot of people are spending a lot more money at the grocery store. But the actual overall numbers are coming down, from eggs to chicken to pork to milk to broccoli.
For how long are we going to have to listen to these fucking liars say, oh, it was just a little blip. Things are coming down. Things are coming down. They've been saying that since January 20th, 2025. For more than a year now, they've said that. Or almost a year now. We're 5 days out from 1 year. For 360 fucking days, they've told us things are coming down. We inherited a mess. Donald Trump's done with 25% of his second term now. And it's still, Joe Biden ruined everything. the masterful genius of all things economic and economy. He promised in 24 hours to turn everything around, solve all of your problems. Only I can fix it. But now that he's here and he's fucking it all up and things are getting worse, it's Joe Biden's fault. Yeah. Well, here is the solution offered to you by Donald Trump and Brooke Rollins if you're having trouble affording to feed your family. If you can't afford to put gas in your car to get to work to make money to feed your family. If you can't afford for prescriptions in order to stay alive to put gas in your car, to get to the job, to pay for the food to feed your family, don't worry, Brooke fucking Rollins has a plan for you.
I think the question you're asking, and it's a really important one, is while we're asking Americans to reconsider what they're eating, are we actually asking Americans, especially those who are living on the margins, are we asking them to spend more on their diet? And the answer to that is no. We've run over 1,000 simulations. It can cost around $3 a meal for a piece of chicken, a piece of broccoli, corn tortilla, and one other thing. And so there is a way to do this that actually will save the average American consumer money.
You've done the analysis on that, because that's one of the criticisms I heard from some, nutrition folks who said, like with the event you mentioned, all the protein, saying, all right, well, steak, obviously, it's expensive. So are you asking people to spend more money with these new dietary guidelines than in the past? Do you say no?
That's right. And the answer to that is absolutely no. Now, there are, as most things are coming down, there are a few outliers. Beef has been one of them, but ground beef is coming down. But here's the real
just remarkable. There's money to invade Venezuela. There's money to try to buy Greenland, and if not, invade Greenland. There's money, $1 trillion motherfucking dollars for the Pentagon. $1 trillion, 1,000 billion dollars. Not 1,000 million, that's a billion. 1,000 billion dollars is what we fund our Pentagon, our Defense Department during peacetime. 1 year. That's 1 year's funding. 1 year. And then they want to tell us we're cutting off your food assistance. We can't afford it. We can't, things are too tough. We inherited a mess. Shockingly, Joe Biden was able to fund food assistance for poor people to help families feed their children. There was money then. What happened? Donald Trump can afford the $400+ million ballroom. He can afford to retrofit the gift from the Qataris that'll probably be $500 million. He can afford all of that, but no money for poor people. We can give 20 billion, 40 billion, whatever we gave to Argentina with their libertarian dipshit president. We have money for that. But you get a piece of chicken, a piece of broccoli, a corn tortilla, and something else. That's right. Jason Crow, someone I'm fond of, typically, he posted this on True Social. I think it's very funny, very apt, very telling, very demonstrative of the situation we have on our hands. Trump gets a gold-plated new ballroom. You get a piece of chicken, broccoli, and one corn tortilla. Why is he underselling it? That's just not true, Congressman Crow. You're misrepresenting what she said. Why do you want to lie, sir? She also said, and one other thing. Maybe that one other thing that Brooke Rollins meant was like a full turkey dinner, a full Christmas dinner with all the trimmings and all the fixins. Maybe that's what she meant. Yeah, we don't know what she meant by the one other thing. Could have been just a single little piece of chocolate as a treat. Or maybe it's just maybe it's Donald Trump's preferred meal that he would gobble down in one sitting of a Big Mac and a double quarter pounder and a milkshake and a filet of fish and a Diet Coke. Maybe it's that. Somehow they're going to work out a deal with McDonald's to make all of that $3 for the poorest Americans to be able to feed their families, to feed their kids, to nourish their children so they can go to school and learn and not be worried about their stomach grumbling. Hungry Americans is not enough. No. Donald Trump gets his ballroom. Donald Trump gets his ethno-state. Donald Trump gets to deliver terrorism through his mass secret police force. And we'll end it there. Call your member of Congress 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121. That is a capital switchboard. Just tell them what zip code you live in. You don't even have to say what congressional district. You give them your address. They'll connect you to your member of Congress, to your senator, and you tell them, do not fund this government at the end of the month. Do not fund Donald Trump's domestic terror squad, his masked Gestapo filled to the brim with Proud Boys. Do not be a Nazi collaborator, because there will be electoral consequences. We're going to be saying names. We're going to be primarying people. Don't be some moderate weakling, because in these times, that equals collaborator. What do you think? I'll see you next time.
You letting Trump scare your ass? You don't deserve a goddamn podcast.
It is a remarkable thing to do this weird job in this particular space in American history, especially. I was in Minnesota last week through the weekend, protesting ICE in the face of ICE agents, calling them mass cowards, telling them they're taking orders from a child rapist. I was out there. They were firing pepper balls at us. It has gotten exponentially worse since I left. I wish I was on the ground there now. But I got 2 voicemails in the span of just a few hours last night. And it is amazing to me that people can witness the same videos, watch the same videos, and walk away with a completely separate understanding of the situation. Both of these calls have to do with me having been a Marine, my former active duty status in the United States Marine Corps. We're going to start with this one, a little short. Man's very concerned that I'm afraid of Donald Trump. He witnesses what I do, my personal behavior on the scene at an ICE facility, at a federal building, screaming and yelling in the faces, screaming my name to these officers who are recording me, telling them what city I live in so they don't even have to look me up. They'll know who the fuck they're talking about. Yet I'm afraid. I'm a coward, and it doesn't line up with the fact that I was a Marine. Listen to this guy.
Dollemore, I thought you was a Marine. You letting Trump scare your ass? You don't deserve a goddamn podcast. Why don't you get on the sumbitch and use it for good something?
Good something. Okay?
You could say something, goddammit. For a scared little old fucking Marine.
Well, thank you. No one's ever called me little. That's fantastic. A scared little old fucking Marine, says the guy who gives me no advice on how to correct the failures that he has witnessed. One, I am not afraid of Donald Trump. I'm not scared of any of these fucking weaklings. If I were, though, it would be okay, because fear is not objectionable. It's inaction in the face of fear that we cannot tolerate in these times. That is what courage is. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action in the face of fear, pushing through the fear. But I assure you, I'm not afraid. There might be consequences. They might come knocking on my door, ICE, after I screamed my name in the face, calling their dear leader a pedophile, calling them Nazis. Maybe, but I'm not afraid. This too shall end. Donald Trump will not be around forever. I don't think he's going to survive the year. He's going to die in his fucking sleep because he's a weak, feeble little bitch. Is that afraid? You want me to say more? I don't deserve a podcast. Unfortunately, there are no qualifications, sir, to have a podcast. What would you have me say? What behavior would cement in your mind that I am not a little old afraid Marine, or however you phrased it? I'd love to know. I hope I hear from you again. I'll look for your number in my voicemails. Now let me play this one. Same day. Same day, watching the same videos, watching the same commentary and analysis from this same host. And this is the other message.
Hey, Jesse, it's Drew, fellow veteran, follower of your YouTube and Facebook page and friend on Facebook. And fellow U.S. Marine veteran. God bless and Semper Fi.
Sure.
I saw your video of you in Minneapolis protesting against the ICE agents, and way to go, man. I'm personally, you mentioned that people who thought you might have gone too far with the language you were using, the names you were using. I don't think you went far enough.
I agree.
Especially when we live in a culture where, it's okay for Donald Trump to flip off a Ford employee and tell him, fuck you, or, all the other dipshittery that he said, and they always cheer it and say, oh, he speaks his mind, tells it like he sees it. We've spent 10 years putting up with this, this culture of cruelty and name calling from MAGA, and as soon as you dish it back to them, they cry like little babies, and it's this whole like dish it out but can't take it thing that they've got going.
Nailed it.
And I can't be the only one who's seen that.
You're not.
Like I said, the idea that as Jasmine Crockett said to Marjorie Taylor Greene, you guys all want to talk a bunch of noise, but when we give it back to you, you can't take it.
Cowards.
So way to go, man, for what you're doing. The only problem I have with it is I wish I'd been in Minneapolis that day with you. But thank you for what you do, man, and keep fighting the good fight. Keep reminding us that there are other sane people like you and me in the world, and just keep doing what you do, and if you're always welcome in my home. Semper Fi, brother. Bye.
Thank you, Drew. Stay green, Marine. I appreciate the sentiment. It is amazing to me that two people can walk away from one video, one set of commentary and analysis in one show, and come away with such different opinions. This is someone who was also a Marine. I don't know the status of the other gentleman who called, but this brings me hope. This boosts my mood and spirit that there are people out there who are seeing what we're seeing, who are identifying as what it is. It is interesting, though, the point that Drew brings up, that all these people who love Donald Trump because he says it like it is. Oh, he says what I'm thinking all the time. They don't like it when we say it how it is. They don't like it when he is questioned. Do not dare cross the dear leader. That is treason to speak against the President of the United States. If you choose to exercise the First Amendment right under the Constitution, that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Congress shall make no law respecting our freedom to peaceably assemble. And if you're screaming you're a fucking Nazi, that's still peaceful for those of you in the back of the room who don't get it. Congress shall make no law that prohibits you from redressing your government of your grievances. That is the First Amendment. So you tell me out there, am I afraid of Trump? Do I come across like I'm afraid of Trump? In what way, sir? Seriously, very perplexing. Would love to know your opinion on this. Comment below and be my, I don't want to say dipshit whisperer because I don't know the guy's intent. Maybe he really is just a patriot and doesn't feel like I'm doing enough. Maybe that's it. Maybe. I didn't get a super MAGA vibe, but I don't know. You tell me in the comments. You can also call the voicemail line just like these two gentlemen did, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. I love and appreciate you all very much. Please consider supporting this work. It would mean the world to me if you have it within your financial means. Do not stretch, do not save, do not budget to support this work financially. You can make sure you're subscribed and share these videos, like and comment. All of that helps. But if you do have an extra $2 that you don't mind throwing away, throw it my way. Become a channel member on YouTube for $2 a month, or you can go to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. I love and appreciate you very much. You have no idea. I wish I could communicate it. I wish I was a talented enough communicator to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and spending time with me every day. I'll see you next time. Be genuine and take care of one another.